Good afternoon. 421. We were so close. My name is Jodi James, and today is Friday, and this is Elevated Intel, episode 47 with Florida Cannabis Action Network. Joining me today in our home studios, is Steve Thaw, our producer, and Hector Roos joining us from Miami. So we are kind of covering the Eastern Seaboard today, guys. We've got Miami, Jacksonville, Melbourne, missing Colette, missing Alex Johnson, missing some of our other team members, but glad to be here with you guys. So those of you who've been paying attention know, we were out of the office last week, tried a little bit of live from Cedar Key. I think we'll get into that a little bit later as we talk about what's new with Florida Cannabis Action Network, but wanted to start us off today with the science. Steve, you've got some interesting science to share with us. Take it away, Steve.
So right before the meeting, or I'm sorry, right before we're going live, I was reading about in Science Daily, the headline caught my attention. It says, "Don't toss cannabis leaves." I was like, what? We all throw cannabis leaves out in the trash, right? Who does anything with the leaves? Well,
plead the fifth. Plead the fifth.
Yeah, right. Apparently, scientists found rare compounds in the leaves recently. This happened at Stellenbosch University in South Africa. And researchers analyzed 3 different commercially grown strains in South Africa. And they used two new different techniques and basically combined them together. And they found 79 phenolic compounds. So for those of you that don't know, phenolic compounds are like the medicinal properties in compounds. Those are your anti-inflammatory compounds, such like that, right? 25 of them has never been reported in cannabis before. And they were able to isolate them by combining these 2 new methods. And it was very surprising, maybe not surprising to those of us who use it medicinally, but very surprising that they found these. Right. So what they did was, I'm sorry, I'm scrolling down my notes here. I have so many windows open.
Getting them ready for this show can be challenging.
Yeah, right.
Did you find what you were looking for? Because this is fascinating, and really goes to speaking to what we talk about a lot, and that's whole plant access. What else did they find?
Okay, so here we go. So they also found where was it? 25 flavoalkanoids in cannabis, right? So those have actually never been found in cannabis before this. And they found it in the leaves here, and they used the here we go, high resolution mass spectrometry combined with 2-dimensional liquid chromatography. They combined the 2 methods together, and they were able to isolate those where they weren't able to isolate them before. It's a very interesting read. The link will be in the show notes.
And Science Daily, that's not high times.
No, not at all.
A few decades ago, one of the folks that was working with me, I asked him to get me some references to cannabis and cancer. And the first one that he gave me was at nature.com. And I'm like, seriously, dude, nature.com? And he's like, I don't know what you want from me, Jodi. That is the England's Board of Medicine. That's their site, is nature.com. What are you going to do? But I think that's fascinating, and it kind of goes to a personal story. Maybe 15, 20 years ago now, Kathy Jordan had a tumor. Kathy was, of course, one of our past presidents and someone that I loved very much, and was instrumental in the medical marijuana program in Florida. Some people have heard about Kathy Jordan. Other people have heard about Myakka Gold and the story of Donnie Clark. Donnie Clark, to bring you up to speed, Donnie Clark had been arrested by the feds. He was told that if he didn't plead guilty and testify against his kids, that he was going to do life in prison. And he refused to testify against his children, ultimately got life in prison. Well, he was pardoned by Bill Clinton. And for the longest time, Kathy wanted to meet Donnie Clark because Myakka Gold was the cannabis that Kathy counted as saving her life. So, long story, get it back to what we're talking about. A young woman showed up at Kathy's house. Kathy had Lou Gehrig's disease and had had it for probably 20 years at this point, progressing very slowly. And the young woman had lollipops. She was a fourth generation cannabis family, right, from the Humboldt County area. And her family focused on the bud. They had great resources, lots of market for Humboldt County, good Humboldt County bud. 10 years ago, that was kind of the premium weed, was good Humboldt County from California. But that left roots and stems and fan leaves and a whole bunch of park plants that they never did anything with. She cooked this down into an oil, a Simpson type oil, right? Extracting what was the good cannabinoids and, of course, the lipids out of it from the roots, the stems, and the fan leaves. When Kathy did what she called a mega dose of this, which was like 3 lollipops, she got very, very sick. And when they took her to the hospital, they realized that she had had a tumor forming in her abdomen where her ovaries would have been. She didn't realize she had a tumor because really, we would help her out of bed. She was never up under her own weight. And when they went in to remove this tumor, they found that the tumor had what she had felt was this tumor turning in on itself and had released itself from its blood sources because cannabis causes apoptosis, which is, natural cell death. And this tumor got just the right cannabinoids and went, oh, I'm supposed to die. And when it disconnected itself, it tried to expel itself. There was no place for it to go. The interesting Donnie Clark part is while she was in the hospital recovering from that, one of our friends came down to help with the family and had chest pains, ended up in the hospital with Donnie Clark's sister, was telling the story of Kathy Jordan and Myakka Gold. And her roommate in the hospital says, oh, Donnie Clark, that's my brother. And so Donnie and Kathy became the odd couple. But, all along we've said there is more to this than what we know. And I'm really glad that a credible place like Science Daily is starting to talk about that. That's pretty exciting. This is an amazing plant, and we've not even begun to tap into it. Thanks for sharing that today.
Absolutely.
Lots of stuff happening in cannabis this week. I did want to kind of, at the top of the hour, remind people cannabis is not legal. So we're kind of at a Schrodinger's cat scenario. Law enforcement is confused. Businesses are not sure what to do. So until you hear otherwise, proceed as though your cannabis is still illegal. We got a call this week to our legal support from a gentleman in Orlando who was riding a bicycle. The officer pulled him over. We don't know why. Said he smelled marijuana. The guy says, yes, it's in my bag. It was from a store. It was in its original packaging, which is something that we continue to remind you to do. And he was still arrested and taken to jail. So we don't have the rest of the story. There may be more to the story. But always remember that cannabis enforcement has always been arbitrary. And that's the worst part about it. While I may not go to jail for doing the exact same thing that someone else does, we need to eliminate prohibition on cannabis in its entirety. And, even after the rescheduling just this week, the FBI and SWAT raided the home of a Virginia senator. Virginia senator also owned a dispensary. They believe that this was all politically motivated because the dispensary was owned by one of the senators who was leading the redistricting charge in Virginia. But FBI and SWAT raided the dispensary and raided the senator's home and offices. So until we are 100% legal for everyone all the time, you need to proceed with caution and make sure that you are protecting yourself. And continue to send Florida Cannabis Action Network these outrageous stories so that we can bring them out, not just the outrageous stories, but the stories of the value that you are getting from cannabis. Remember, Drug-Free America and SAM, Smart Approaches to Marijuana, are continuing to pound lawmakers at the state and federal level with information about how dangerous cannabis is. Just this week, the White House announced its national drug policy strategy. They put one out every year. In 2024, they spent $46.1 billion across various agencies in the federal government to protect public safety. And one of their top priorities this year, again, is THC. So while it may seem like we've had a lot of steps forward, we've also had a few steps back. And the idea that the ONDCP is going to spend another $46 billion in drug policy and drug control, and that they're going to continue to prioritize cannabis, should be frightening to all of us. So FBI rates, new federal drug control policy released. There was also wanted to put out there that there was a congressional report released just on April 30th that is talking about some of the do's and don'ts, some of the changes that's going to happen with federal rescheduling. You can check that out at the congressional reports, and we'll make sure that we get this in there. But really, it comes down to the idea that commerce between the states is still not being accepted, and that companies are going to have to start to figure out within their own rules and policies what they're going to allow and not allow. If you're in human resources and HR for your company, this is a great time to begin the process of creating new policies for your company that are going to respect the medical rights of individuals, and particularly as it relates to cannabis. So there's lots and lots of news happening in Florida. Hector, tell us what you got today.
Thank you, Jodi. Just wanted a quick, I saw a message saying that the arbitrary enforcement, or is it actually purposefully targeting poor people, right?
Purposefully targeting poor people of color, and people that drive really nice cars. Don't forget that, because forfeiture is real.
That is true. Yes, if they're known to walk around with a lot of cash, absolutely.
Nice car, man.
So there's, I want to bring up a subject that we've been talking about for months now, the Smart and Safe Florida campaign. We thought, it's dead. No, it's alive. No, we're waiting. It's on life support. It looks like now, last week, 8 days ago. Well, actually, we were on our last Elevate Intel podcast. The court in the federal court judge decided with the state of Florida, on upholding Florida's stricter ballot initiative laws, which which banned a bunch of things, including out of non-state residents and non-U.S. citizens from collecting signatures. Smart and Safe Florida campaign had been trying to get that law set aside so that they could still claim the balance of petitions that were validated through those petitioners. And if that had happened, maybe we'd still be talking about something else. But but at this point, that was it looked like their strategy. It did not work out. And all that's left is either give up for this cycle, or the voters' lawsuit that we proposed could still move forward, challenging that there wasn't any authority to invalidate already validated petitions, and certainly underwriting our petition, First Amendment rights guaranteed the right to petition our government. But with that said, if we're not going to have this referendum then this year, it becomes very much more important who gets elected this November. And I wanted to bring in Steve now because he'd been bringing up to us about where do our candidates for governor stand on medical marijuana, recreational, on the whole gambit, right? Because it's going to be telling. It'll be telling for us who's going to win, who's going to win our support even.
Who we want to support.
All right, so first up, we've got Byron Donalds. You know, he's Trump's guy, whatever. He is originally from Brooklyn, New York. He's been living in Florida for about the last 30 years. He moved here in 2003. And he is against cannabis. Paul Renner, he was actually born in Atlanta, Georgia, but he moved to the Jacksonville area. He was raised here. He's been here for over 50 years. You know, so he is 100% against cannabis. He's posting reels on social media talking about how he's going to continue that enforcement, right? And then you've got Jay Collins. He's our current lieutenant governor. He was born in Montana. I actually didn't know that. He's been a Florida resident for the last 8 years. And, you know, he's DeSantis's guy. He's completely against cannabis. And then you got the one outlier. You got David Jolly. He was born in Dundalin, Florida. And he's kind of weird. Historically, he's been against cannabis. But he says, listen, Florida has had their voice heard 3 times, over 55%, all 3 times. They've wanted cannabis. They've said they want it. So he's not gonna be against it. Now, you know, that's what he says publicly. It's politics. I won't speak to that, but that's what I was able to find for today's show.
Well, Hector, did you want to weigh in on that? Because I certainly have thoughts.
Sure. So David Jolly is an interesting person, but on the list, he's the only Democrat that's running on that list, right? I don't even know if they're the Democratic Party basically has 2 candidates running for governor. The other one is the Orange County Mayor.
Jerry Demings.
Demings.
Now you've got me confused. Val
Demings, right?
Jerry Demings. Yeah.
Jerry. So I don't know where Jerry Demings stands, but I will say that from my perspective, the only one that has the only candidate that has a clear track record of saying I am pro has been the Republican Congressman Brian Donalds, right? If I'm saying that correctly, from Southwest Florida. He has the endorsement of Trump. He has the endorsement of MMTCs. He has the whatever, right? But who knows what that means ultimately?
He said and I dug into this some too, so that I could, you know, talk with Steve about this. So I was looking at an NPR article and was very concerned about it because I basically got the same thing that Steve did. Byron actually said there are 954,000 patients, and I think that's enough. I don't think anybody else should have it. And, you know, he's the sweetheart of the MMTCs, and I can get why not? They are now a Schedule 3. They now have access to tax, to equity, to banking and banking services. And they're the only legal game in town. Why would they want anything else? And I had that thought when you were talking about the Smart and Safe initiative. At this point, you would not put your eggs in the basket of legalization. You would continue to put your ROI towards acquisition of new patients, because the only thing that grows your business at this point is the acquisition of new patients. So, you know, I would have to wonder if the fight for legalization is a fight we want, first and foremost, because as a consumer, who is selling it and what taxes they're paying certainly impacts me, because a regulatory scheme that has businesses that can't compete, and really that's where we're at right now. We have created such regulation in this industry that it is unaffordable for the average business person to participate. particularly in Florida, where you have to be brilliant at everything from seed to sale. Those kind of barriers are ridiculous. But I was listening to MJ Biz did a program on federal rescheduling today. And the discussion, the one guy was saying, he's in New York, and the way the New York rules are written, it's not legal for him to move cannabis from one of his stores to another store. They don't have a system in place for that. So, as Pfizer, they don't think anything at all about mailing me my drugs. And particularly even my Schedule III drugs, they don't even think twice about mailing it to me. So I think that this move to Schedule III, unless we can impact the decisions that get made in June and deschedule right now, I'm afraid it could be another decade before we see an opportunity like that again. And I'm not sure that any of these guys are really going to move us forward. My confidence is low. Hector, your thoughts?
I think you're onto something here. I think there is no appetite in the Florida political landscape to do what to do the right thing. They're instead going to sit there and say, "Oh, we're going to follow the federal guidelines as they come in, and the change will happen at the federal level instead." And that's functionally something we've already predicted. One of the goals of federal of Florida Can this year or this coming years is moving forward is influencing our elected officials in Congress, because that is where the discussion's really happening. That's where Medicaid is offering the CBD program now for on a trial basis, right? But they're offering it, and that's where all the expansion is going to come in. That's where all the employment protection issues are coming in from their federal level. So the state is pretty much done doing what their part of it, and they're not protecting businesses that are in the place unless they have a high-powered lobbyist on speed dial. So the only protection that comes from the federal level, the only reforms are going to come from the federal level, and that's what kind of makes us give a pause as to does it matter where our vote is this year for governor? So because they're not interested in patient protections, they're not interested in home grow, they're not interested in anything that resembles rec. They want it nice and locked market where you have to follow the current guidelines, which we hope won't change further, by the way, because make it they're basically the marketing rules today that have been put into place recently would even prohibit MMTCs from offering those little discount cards and specials, right. to patients that really actually rely on that, right? So it's we're having headway, but there's a lot of work to do.
Did you want to add something to that, Steve? Because there was a couple things that crossed my mind when he was speaking.
Yeah, the one thing that keeps crossing my mind throughout all of this is I keep hearing all these new protections that these corporations are getting. I want to know where my protections are. I spent 21 years in the military fighting for freedom, but I can't grow my own cannabis because a company wants my money instead. So we created this regulatory scheme that we are all now trapped into. And I personally can't stand that. It drives me insane. I'm sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, this is a great place for a soapbox. I totally get it. I was reminded of the quote from U.S. labor activist Nicholas Klein. It was a lot of people think it was Gandhi, but it was actually Nicholas Klein in 1918 who said, first they ignore you, then they ridicule you, then they attack you and want to burn you, and then they build you monuments. Gandhi was a little kinder about that, but we are definitely in the fight back stage. Drug-free America, smart approaches to marijuana. They are not going quietly into the night. They're not going to say, oh, you were right, it was medicine all along. Oops. We're just not seeing that. And, people need to recognize the impact that Drug-Free America and SAM have in Florida. SAM's national headquarters is the University of Florida. we are ground zero for many, many things. The exciting thing about the article that I read about the candidates, though, is that there was a forum, and the first question that got asked by the public was, how do you stand on recreational marijuana? So adult use, responsible adult use, maybe we should use that term instead of recreational, responsible adult use, just like we can responsibly use alcohol. We can responsibly use cannabis. So fascinating things. What else are you following this week, Hector? Anything?
Well, absolutely. But I do want to mention where Florida Canada's position with all this, because of how effective our program has been in the last year. We now have legislators who recognize that if you don't want if you don't want unregulated access, right? If you don't want street access, basically, and the best way to solve that is to make it easier to get into the medical program. Period. And we've gotten a lot of support from legislators in the past couple of months on this note. Just make it easier to get into the medical program. For veterans, it would just make it lower the cost, straight directly, right? So we're looking forward to what that looks like, and guess what? We have special sessions to talk about. Special session D just ended, right? Just ended last week. The governor had called a special session to start on 420. Oh no, it then delayed a week because the optics of starting on 420 was too much. So they started a week after that.
Busy at home.
Right. Doing 420 things, right? In 420 places.
That's right.
So we're left with, so what did they had a laundry list of things to do. They only accomplished one thing that their politics would suffer for, which was redistricting. They approved from redistricting. It's before the Florida Supreme Court now. Governor DeSantis then signed it into law. So they basically gerrymandered it so that I don't even think that's a bad word anymore. Where they reduced the representation by the Democratic Party elected Democrats by 4. So they're technically changed it so that Democrats would not have an advantage in 4 new congressional districts. That means they suddenly are they're Republican districts, and now you see a lot of more retirements on top of that. So you have like 4, 5, maybe 6 congressional seats that are open now, that are playing musical chairs happening amongst the Republicans about who's going to go to Congress. Right. So one of them is you may have heard of we'll do another episode, a breakdown of who's running. But that leaves that means there's 4 less Democrats that are going to be able to run for office, because now some of them are not in safe districts. So one of them is actually the former DNC chairwoman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who's probably the Democrat who's been in Congress the longest right now, currently serving. So we'll find out whether she'll take the hint and retire that's been given to her from Tallahassee, or she's going to fight it out in multiple direction primaries in Broward County. That was special session D. Now we're on to special session.
Wait. Did we get ivermectin?
None.
No.
Ivermectin. We did not get over the counter. No
medical freedom.
No, the medical freedom did not. The Florida Senate heard it, moved it along. The Florida House was not interested whatsoever. They just passed the maps, the new district maps, and said, we're done. That's it. And of course, someone decided at the beginning of the session to send not so nice messages out to everybody talking about people's personal frivolities. That was not taken kindly. So maybe it was people did that on purpose to give people excuses, right? But it's all personal. How can this all be personal with people's business, right? Anyway,
people's lives.
It's fun, and they get to do all this all over again starting next week. So special session E. That is to say that this year alone, there have been A, B, C, D, E. 5 special sessions already. Next week, why? And this one's the most important one. Why? Because it's the budget. And they will meet Tuesday, May 12th, starting at 10 a.m. for 3 weeks.
For 3 weeks?
For 3 weeks, until they get the budget done.
So for all of the fiscal conservatives that watch this show, I have to ask, how are we going to get out of this quagmire? I was going to ask, would you cross party lines to vote for the best cannabis candidate? But at the end of the day, as a fiscal conservative, you're not going to vote for the Democrat, and you can't keep voting for the same Republicans that's one job was to pass a budget, and it took them 6 special sessions to do. Do you have any idea off the top of your head, rough numbers, what a special session for even a week might cost?
I have no idea, but it will be in the millions, from security
numbers
down
are out.
to all staff and legislators. Yeah, it's going to be. It's easily. It's imagine a lot. Imagine running for 3 weeks. By the way, I mean three
For
full
3.
weeks. Yeah,
I can't afford to fill up my car.
Right.
And my son's like, I'm getting an e-bike to go back and forth to work because, gas is $75, $80 a fill up. And we're not in a expensive space, right? So they're really going to spend another few $1 million to do
I
what
mean,
I
they're
sent them there to do
constitutional.
in January.
They're constitutionally obligated. They
During
have to.
session.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, but they didn't get it. So what are we gonna do? I will say there is a silver lining, and let me read the
Okay.
the proclamation from the Florida Senate President's office, Ben Albert. I'm going to read this section. Let's see if you can point out the silver lining. By agreement of leaders Boyd and Berman, we will complete all procedural work needed to place our chamber in the position we left at the end of the regular session and swiftly enter the budget conference with the House. Procedurally, this will require new vehicles for our budget, implementing bill, conforming bills, and tax relief package. Pursuant to the proclamation later this week, we will file bills identical to those filed by the Senate during regular session. All differences and outstanding issues will be considered during public meetings within the budget conference and again on the Senate floor prior to final passage.
So you think our veterans bill is back in play?
That would be nice.
Does that also mean the MMTC bills that we killed dead are back in play?
They have they had problems with them originally, so they're going to have to be reintroduced in a different way, certainly.
Wow. Okay. Fundraising plea.
Sure.
We did not budget for an additional 3 weeks in Tallahassee this year by any stretch of the imagination.
We did not. Right. And this was dated Cinco de Mayo. So we were, this is just days ago. So this is where we're at. And by the way, mind you, the House will not do a lot of business with the Senate, as they've already indicated from special session D, right? D for don't. So
wow.
Yeah, exactly. So we are looking at something very special happening. They know that they had a lot of work they left to do, and that's why they agreed to 3 weeks. It's like an extra 3 weeks from session. That didn't they wasted 3 weeks from session, actually, unfortunately, on the Senate side, because President Alberton really had the health issue, and that gummed up the works, and there was so they definitely felt like they had to return back to square one, or at least halfway. They've almost finished half the work in the regular session, and this is them trying to finish it for real.
Well, the good news is that we certainly got as far as we'd seen on the veterans bill. We have talked to some of the budget chairs about seeing that gets back in. The lift is a little bit easier for it since cannabis is now Schedule 3. I had put out feelers, though, to see if they were going to look at cannabis during anytime soon, and they thought it probably wouldn't happen until committee weeks next year. So we don't expect to see significant changes, but we might be able to get that veterans card back up and into play. Excellent reporting. Thank you very much, Hector. This has been a great week for Florida Cannabis Action Network. We actually had some birthdays. So shout out to Dana Niffen on our board of directors and Jen Macris, speaking of Cinco de Mayo,
Hey, Mac.
who J Mac had a birthday. Happy birthday to Dana and Jen. We were all in Cedar Key together for a weekend, celebrating one another and participating in the Tiki Festival. I don't know if people saw pictures online, but anything that you saw, there was twice as much and it was 3 times as fun. Favorite thought from the Tiki weekend, Steve? Anything that you would say we should do this again or people should have been there because of?
Well, people definitely should have been there because of, well, it's us and we have fun.
We definitely had fun.
Yeah.
Hector, you went out to dinner with your wife.
Yes, everything's
spent some
wonderful.
time.
Everything's great. I love CT. I loved Cedar Key, and of course the meeting of seeing everybody participate in person and obviously over the Kim and streaming. It was great to hear them and see that. I will point out, we have a couple of text messages, texts that come in from the comments, live comments from or and Allen, and I think at the end of this program, I think it's interesting to find out. He's asking what's driving the cost of the medical program in general. Like, why are we paying $75? Oof.
That is a great question. And if you look at the budget for the Office of Medical Marijuana Use, there is absolutely zero reason for it. And we did kind of a good breakdown of this for lawmakers last year. Going into last year, they had a multi-million-dollar surplus. They're charging each of the MMTCs over $1 million every 2 years to renew. There is really no excuse whatsoever for the amount of revenue that they are collecting. And it's the one thing that we did not see in the budget was a really good line item on how much they're spending on litigation. But that's what has really been the cost driver for the program is litigation. They have narrowly defined the program. Most people know that initially there were only 5 licenses and you were only going to be allowed to have a limited number of dispensaries. They were immediately sued. They were sued over the number of licenses. They were sued over the number of dispensaries you could have. They went and set up a black farmer's license. They were sued by everybody who didn't get a license. And then they put out another 22 licenses and they were sued by everybody who didn't get one of those. So quite frankly, we are paying for them to keep people out of the cannabis business. It is a horrible, horrible thing. But we're going to continue to look at ways that we can promote personal cultivation. I think that if you want safe, accessible cannabis and you want it to be affordable, growing your own cannabis has to be an option. I was in my state approved cannabis bag and there's a seed. Does anybody in their right mind think that if I found a seed in my tomato that I shouldn't be able to put that seed in the ground? Does anybody in their right mind think that if I found a seed in any other product that I purchased that seed didn't belong to me? So it's medicine. It came directly from a dispensary. I own my property. I'm not part of a homeowners association, and I'm a sovereign individual in the state of Florida with a right to cultivate herbs, vegetables, and fruits for my own personal use. Steve, you asked what benefit Schedule 3 has for us. The only thing that I can come up with right now is the ability to cross state lines with less fear. And I'm not saying with no fear, but just with less, because at least it would be defendable. And, we talk a lot about rights and knowing your rights and acting within the color of the law. But we started this program with cannabis is still illegal, and you can do everything right, be totally acting within the color of the law, and still have an encounter with law enforcement that goes south. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do everything right, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't take the arrest. It just means that you should be associated with people who are going to help you defend those rights, because sometimes that's what patriotism is. it's not having a right and not using it. It's having a right violated and doing everything that you have to do to make it right and to make them acknowledge your rights. So we had an annual meeting. For those of you who attended and are watching, thank you very much. For those of you who are members and weren't able to attend, we really appreciate the input. One of the things that struck me is that at the very least, I'm committed to 2 more years to getting this organization to 30. We have a brand new board member, Benny Blanchard, who some of you have seen on Talk It Out. We've done a couple programs with the third branch that Benny has joined us for. So Benny joined our board of directors. Yay, Benny, right? So birthdays, new board members, lots of great stuff going on with Florida Cannabis Action Network. You have a couple things happening in your community, Steve, there in the Northeast. High Society is happening when?
It is happening on the third Thursday at Cheers off of 17. And I also have other news. Sir Alex Johnson, one of our active members here in Jacksonville, he just got Salesman of the Month at, I think he works for Chevy. Congratulations, Alex.
All right, go Alex. Yay. And that is Sir Alex. You've met Lady Alex on here before. Right. And Sir and Lady Alex host High Society. That's the third Thursday and the first Tuesday.
Right. The first Tuesday is at Cava and Company in San Marco. And then the third Thursday is out in Clay County at Cheers on 17. And both places are fantastic. It's a great time. Come on out. Have fun with us.
We have a great little video out and about weekend at Benny's. I'm a little concerned. Yeah. Weekend at Bernie's, weekend at Benny's, weekend at Bernie's. I mean, me a little nervous. But weekend at Benny's, and that is going to be the June 7th.
Yes, 7th.
Sunday, June 7th, and we'll get you more details. Mark your calendar. That's from 1 to 5. Benny is representing the Tampa region, so I think where's home for Benny? Do you remember?
Zephyr Hills, Florida.
Zephyr Hills, Florida. Okay. So West Coast will be well represented next weekend when we talk about the weekend at Benny's. And for all of you who are interested in the science, research, and medicine, the state Florida Medical Cannabis Conference and Exhibition is going to be taking place the last weekend of the month. That's fncce.com, and that's where you can get your tickets. If you are associated with a doctor's office, you may very well be able to get a discount code or watch your email from Florida Cannabis Action Network. We have a bit of a discount code for you as well. All right. I appreciate your time today, Steve. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Elevated Intel, our pleasure. We'll look forward to being back with you next Friday. And remember, we are Florida Cannabis Action Network. Thanks for tuning in. If you like the show, follow us, like us, and share.